Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. Today we're checking out the geography of British music explained, Union Jack.
This video is sponsored by Hook Theory. I'm certainly biased, but I've always thought it impressive how many great bands and artists hail from Great Britain. Every corner of this country has produced musicians who have gone on to conquer the world. Now, despite being from England myself, the majority of you guys, the people who watch my videos, are not from the UK.
I've wondered about this. There are so many British bands that rock my world. I can't even, other than Oasis. There's too many to think of. The Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Queen, Black Sabbath, Sex Pistols. There's too many. I'm forgetting some. This is a great question, and I've wanted to know. And I just reacted to a video about bands from Manchester. There are a ton of bands from Manchester. It's strange. I'm curious why, and I hope he's going to answer that question. Just a side note, this guy David Bennett Piano, be sure to check out his channel if you're into music stuff, because he has a lot of really great videos. Anyway, why? Show me.
And I know that particularly to outsiders, British geography can be a little bit confusing. Even in this intro alone, I've already referred to my home country by 3 different names.
Right.
Great Britain, the UK and England. So today I'm going to simultaneously clear up any confusion you have about what exactly these islands and countries are called, and show you which corners of these islands produce some of the most revered and successful bands of all time.
Right.
So what we are looking at right now on the screen is the British Isles. Within the British Isles, there are 2 completely separate sovereign states, 2 different countries, the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. Now, most of this video will focus on my home country, the United Kingdom, but Ireland has also given the world its fair share of amazing bands and artists. The most famous, I think, would be U2, who formed in Ireland's capital city, Dublin, and other famous Irish acts include the Cranberries, Hosier, and Enya. So that's the Republic of Ireland.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, definitely heard of the Cranberries, and I knew they were from Ireland. Hosier. Oh, is that the church guy? He had a song about going to church? Is that him?
And Enya.
Enya. Yeah, I am Enya. That's her.
So that's the Republic of Ireland. But as you can see, the top part of this island, the Island of Ireland, instead is part of the United Kingdom. This part is called Northern Ireland. Perhaps the most famous Northern Irish musician is Van Morrison, who was born in Northern Ireland's capital city, Belfast.
What? Van Morrison is Irish? Irish as in from Ireland? I didn't know that. Let me just fact check David Bennett. I'm sure he's right. I can't believe it. He's from Northern Ireland. Okay. I reacted to a video about the differences between UK, Great Britain, and then the countries within that. If I can remember how to link it, check it out here. If I don't know, maybe I'll forget. I'll probably forget.
The punk rock band The Undertones also hail from Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is not part of the country of Ireland, but instead part of the country of the United Kingdom, the UK. The full name, actually, of the United Kingdom is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So it's a United Kingdom of this part, Northern Ireland, and this part, Great Britain. This island is called Great Britain.
Okay.
And the island of Great Britain is subdivided into 3 parts, 3 constituent countries: England, Scotland, and Wales.
Okay.
Now, this is where it can get confusing, because I mentioned earlier that there's only 2 countries on screen right now, Ireland and the UK. But then I said that we've also got these countries, England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland.
Yeah, that's confusing.
England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland aren't really countries in the typical sense that we use that word. They're what's called constituent countries. It's actually kind of easier to think of them as states or provinces rather than constituent countries, because these 4 constituent pieces make up one unified country, the United Kingdom. But anyway, we'll save England for last, as it's the biggest, and instead take a look first at Scotland.
I feel like I understand this whole thing, but at the same time, I've not internalized it, and I can't, I mean, it almost doesn't matter to me. It's an interesting thing, but in the scope of the world, it doesn't matter. Let's get to the music, right?
Scotland has given the world many classic artists, including Simple Minds, Travis, and Franz Ferdinand, who all formed in...
No way! Well, I thought Franz Ferdinand were English. and what was the other band?
Simple Minds.
Simple Minds and Travis. Holy crap. I guess, I don't know. I just assumed they were, well, I almost said British, but they are British. I just didn't realize they were Scottish. See, this is, now it's confusing.
1970s teen bop sensation the Bay City Rollers formed in Scotland's capital city of Edinburgh,
I've heard
and
of them.
other Scottish artists include Calvin Harris, Jerry Rafferty, Lewis Capaldi, and of course...
I love that song. A lot of Scottish rock bands. Okay, so the Bay City Rollers, Calvin Harris, very talented, and the Proclaimers. They're all Scottish. Way to go, Scotland. What's going on up there?
So that's Scotland. Let's now move down to Wales. Despite its small size, Wales has still given the world many amazing musicians, including Sir Tom Jones, the Stereophonics, the Manic Street Preachers, Bonnie Tyler, and Shirley Bassey. Dame Shirley Bassey was born in the Welsh capital city of Cardiff.
Okay.
So, like I said, the UK is comprised of 4 constituent countries. We've looked at Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales. Now it's time for the big boy, England. England has a population bigger than all 3 of the other constituent countries combined.
Oh, wait, hang on. 56 million. Scotland is 5.4. Wales is 3.1. Northern Ireland is 1.8. Wow, okay.
And therefore logically has yielded the most noteworthy bands and musicians. Even England's capital city alone, London, has a bigger population than any of the constituent countries that we've talked about so far.
Population. This makes, see, so far, this is making sense. It's logical that there are more people from England, or that there are more people living in England, so more bands would come out of England. That makes sense. That's logical. But why? What's the real reason?
There are so many artists that have come from London. So let me just whiz through a few of them right now. David Bowie, Elton John, Adele, The Kinks, The Who, Led Zeppelin, Queen, Coldplay, the list goes on. However, something...
From London, though? I know specifically that not every member of Led Zeppelin was from London. They were formed in London. Okay, yeah. I feel like John Bonham was from the rural north. Worcestershire. Redditch, Worcestershire. John Bonham's probably my most favorite drummer to listen to, and I have to say, I've worked with his son, Jason Bonham. I was working with the band Foreigner when he played with them, and they came to the studio I was working at in Atlanta, and they re-recorded a lot of their earlier hits. So I got to record Jason Bonham. It was really cool. And he's a great guy. Super friendly, fun, lighthearted, really great guy. Anyway.
However, something that does inflate this list is the fact that many aspiring musicians move to London to help further their career. For example, Coldplay frontman Chris Martin is actually from the county of Devon down here, but he moved to London to go to university and wound up forming Coldplay whilst he was there.
I think that happens a lot with bands. They move to the big city in the area, and that's where they meet other musicians and they form a thing. That's like in America, New York or LA or Nashville, maybe. Chicago, maybe.
London is very much the epicenter of the British music industry, so any band who has any success in any part of the UK is likely to wind up moving to London to further their career. The Rolling Stones are another band who were ultimately formed in London, but weren't originally from London. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, for example, were actually from Dartford in Kent, down here. Now there's one city in England which is perhaps known better worldwide because of the bands that came from it. I'm talking, of course, about Liverpool. Liverpool was, of course, the original home of the Beatles. But the Beatles weren't the only famous band from Liverpool. In fact, the Beatles were part of a music scene based in Liverpool known as Merseybeat, named after the River Mersey that runs through Liverpool. Perhaps the second most famous Merseybeat band was Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Yeah, I've never really connected with the music of Jerry and the Pacemakers.
Since the Beatles, Liverpool has also spawned other successful artists, including Frankie Goes to Hollywood and Echo and the Bunnymen. Another much larger city in the northwest region of England is Manchester, which, as England's third largest city, has also given the world many famous artists, including Oasis, the Smiths, and the Stone Roses. The Stone Roses were actually part of a music scene based in Manchester in the late 80s and early 90s called Manchester, which also included other local bands like the Happy Mondays, James, and the Charlatans.
There were a lot of them, a lot more than that, right? Joy Division, can't think of them all. but there's a bunch of them. Just did a video about that.
Now, we can't mention Oasis and Manchester without also mentioning their sworn rivals, Blur, who hail from Colchester in Essex down south.
Okay.
In the 1990s, Oasis and Blur were pitted against each other in what was dubbed the Battle of Britpop.
I'm more of a Blur man myself.
Which was in part a North versus South rivalry.
Oh.
Two English cities made famous by their long-established universities are Oxford and Cambridge. And beyond university graduates, these cities have also given us some famous artists, including Supergrass and Foals from Oxford, and Radiohead from nearby Abingdon, and Clean Bandit and Pink Floyd from Cambridge. However, I must note that although David Gilmour, Roger Waters and Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd all came from Cambridge, the band ultimately formed and was based in London, as is the case with so many British bands.
Sure.
A British place name that often trips up foreigners is the city of Leicester, which is where the band Kasabian come from. Moving down towards the south again, the city of Bristol was known for its trip-hop scene in the early 90s, which included artists such as Massive Attack and Portishead. And moving even further south to the...
I love Portishead. So eerie and... oh, yeah, okay. They're from down there? I've heard Bristol is really nice, actually. There's a beach and everything. And yet, Portishead played such dark music.
And moving even further south to the bottom tip of the UK, we reach the isolated county of Cornwall. But even little Cornwall has given the world some noteworthy musicians, including Aphex Twin and Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac.
Oh.
Now, a moment ago...
Oh my god, I remember a story about Mick Fleetwood. A friend of mine in college, his parents were pretty well off, and they had a house in the Bahamas. Like, really, that's nice. He was there, and his parents were having a party downstairs. He was a little kid, and he was upstairs by himself. This guy from the party downstairs came upstairs and, like, passed out on a sofa. And my friend, he's just a little kid. He's like, there's a guy here. This is weird. A little strange. Turns out that guy was Mick Fleetwood. He just passed out on his couch randomly. Anyway, thought I'd share.
Now, a moment ago, I mentioned the county of Devon. The most famous band to come from Devon is Muse. Moving along the south coast, we find this little island. This is the Isle of Wight. Unlike the other little island over here, which I'll mention later, the Isle of Wight is 100% part of England. It is by no means a separate country or anything like that. And despite its small size, even the Isle of Wight has yielded some famous musicians, including the band Level 42, and more recently one of my new favourite bands, Wet Leg.
Wet Leg? Did he say Wet Leg? That's a great band name.
Wet Leg.
Wet Leg? Oh my god. That's such a great name. Wet Leg. Wow. I have to hear their music. Sounds good. I dig it. I like their music. It sounds really good, and it's funny.
Moving further eastward along the coast, we reach Brighton, which is actually where I went to university to study music, and it was at the very same music college that I went to that the band The Kooks were formed. Other famous acts from Brighton include Royal Blood, and although not a Brighton native, Fatboy Slim is well known for having made Brighton his home. Now, returning up north again, a region we've not discussed...
Doesn't Brighton have really nice beaches? I feel like I saw that in a video. Looks like a nice place to live.
Now, returning up north again, a region we've not discussed yet is Yorkshire. Despite taking its name from the city of York, nowadays the largest cities in Yorkshire are actually Sheffield, which has given the world many bands including Pulp, Def Leppard, The Human League, Arctic Monkeys, and the singer Joe Cocker, and Leeds, which gave us the Kaiser Chiefs.
I remember being a little kid and hearing Human League for the first time. It was that song, Don't You Want Me? And I thought, this is such a weird song. Anyway, random things you remember from childhood.
And if we head even further north in England, we reach the city of Newcastle. The band The Animals, known for their version of House of the Rising Sun, were from Newcastle. Sting, from the band The Police, is from the nearby town of Wallsend.
Sting is ripped. Look at those arms. I didn't know. I thought he was a wiry little rock star. This makes me like him less. I'm jealous.
And a more recent artist to come from the Newcastle area is Sam Fender. Now, we've mentioned England's biggest city, London, and its third largest city, Manchester, but we're yet to mention the UK's second largest city, Birmingham. Birmingham is in the West Midlands of England, and many iconic and famous artists came from Birmingham. including ELO, Black Sabbath, Dexys Midnight Runners, Duran Duran, and the Moody Blues.
Oh, this is crazy how many bands are all from this area. England in general. Why is that? He's covering all these bands. He's telling me which bands are from there, but he's not telling me why. That's what I'm really curious about, is why.
So that is England, but as I've mentioned before, we also have this little island here. This is the Isle of Man, and unlike the Isle of Wight down here, the Isle of Man isn't actually part of the United Kingdom at all. It's a crown dependency, just like Jersey and Guernsey down by France. A crown dependency isn't a sovereign country, but it's a self-governing territory which I guess effectively belongs to the UK, but isn't part of the UK.
That's complicated.
But despite all of this, even the Isle of Man has its claim to musical fame in being the birthplace of the Gibb brothers, better known as the Bee Gees.
All right.
So, in summary, these are the British Isles, with the two main islands being called Ireland and Great Britain. On the island of Ireland, we have the Republic of Ireland, which is its own separate country, and we also have Northern Ireland, which is one of 4 constituent countries, along with England, Wales and Scotland, that make up the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Okay.
Of course, there are plenty other British artists that I didn't mention, so if you can think of a classic British artist and where they come from, leave it in the comments down below. As you may be able to guess from this video, beyond being a music nerd, I'm also a geography nerd, so if there's any other music geography hybrid videos I could make like this, then do suggest them down in the comments below.
Well, damn, he didn't tell me why. I was hoping he would say, there's a giant water reservoir under England that has a lot of magnesium in it, and it makes people's brains come up with new chordal progressions and different melodies, and a propensity towards the minor 7th chord. But no, he's just named bands that are from there. Oh, the geography of British music explained. The geography. I mean, I guess he sort of explained that. Wet leg. I used to work with Elton John back in the day. I recorded an album with him and a few individual songs, and I remember we had catering set up in the kitchen of the studio, and there was a cheese plate, and there was a cheese from Isle of Man, and it was a joke. A lot of jokes around that, but also the cheese was extremely stinky. No way. I remember that. I also remember getting food poisoning from raw almonds of the catering, so the bass player did as well. His name was Bob Birch. He has since passed away. Wonderful guy. Anyway, we had food poisoning together. Elton, if you're watching, what's up? Good to see you. I'm in LA now. I'm not in Atlanta anymore. I don't know why I'm saying that. This is crazy how many talented bands came from this little area. How is that? Why is that? Like, what is music education like in Britain? You know? Is it something that kids have to seek out, or are they... Oh, interesting. The national curriculum for England includes music as a statutory entitlement for all children aged 5 to 14. From the age 14, students may choose to study for the General Certificate of Secondary Education, and from 16 onwards study a range of courses which can lead to university entrance. So kids have music education from 5 to 14. That's great. There are a lot of schools in America that are trying to cut arts. And that's such a bad idea, because music stretches your brain out and it makes you better at other subjects like math and English and chemistry. This is great though. Maybe that's why. Every kid gets a little taste of some music in there. That would make sense. Get a little taste of music, get a little taste of some piano, some guitar, some trumpet, some saxophone. Get a little taste and then rebel against it and play the guitar and sing about the Queen. Just kidding. In my mind, there's a big reservoir of water with a bunch of magnesium in it, or taurine or something. Some kind of thing that makes them aware of harmonic complexities. I'm going with that. Anyway, thank you all for watching this with me, and I'll see y'all next time. Later.